Okay, so it's been a while since we recorded our last daily training, and so I wanted to record something today. This is on this particular topic, we're going to look at how to refactor this component using recursion so that we can recursively generate React components. So in this particular piece of code, we have a situation where this main topic function right here calls this.unit and passes children, and then the unit function right here receives the children, renders the current level, then calls this.lesson. This.lesson receives children, then calls this.activity, and so on up the chain here. After we wrote this code, we looked at it and decided that it would be that these functions are actually quite similar, and so it would be worthwhile to refactor it so that we could reduce the replication of code. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep main topic and have this launch our recursive process. We're going to add a new function here. Currently these functions are named based on the level at which they render. So there's a unit, there's a lesson, there's an activity. When we do this recursively, there's not going to be the same connection of level with the thing that's being rendered. So we're just going to create a generic name and call it render children. Okay, so we have a function that is going to receive children, and it's basically going to be the same exact code right here. So we're going to copy paste that down. All right, since this is going to be recursive, let's put our launching point right here. So this main topic is going to call render children. It's going to receive the children of the current child, which is already being iterated over. This could probably be refactored as well, but we'll look at that again in a minute. There's two nested lists right here, so that's going to be a little bit more difficult to refactor. So the render children right here, we receive the children. For each child, we're going to render this unordered list. There's going to be a list item. We have this class hanging out here with the dash dash drop down. If you notice up here, this one does not have that class. So we're going to have to take that into account in our logic as we render. One of the things you have to be careful with when writing a recursive function is to have an end condition. Otherwise, this will go on forever. Because in a recursive function, instead of calling this.lesson right here, we're going to call ourself. So as long as we have children, we should continue to call ourself. The end condition, in this case, needs to occur when a child has no children. So we can just put a little bit of logic here at the beginning of the function and say if child.children. Now we could wrap the whole thing in that if condition, but rather than nesting things underneath another conditional, we're just going to say if not child.children, we're just going to return. So basically, since these are just plain old JavaScript objects, child.children, if there are no children, that's going to be undefined. And so we're going to get an undefined right here, and we can just return. If we wanted to be a little bit more careful about how we do this, we can actually import Lodash. And in our function, where did it go? Right there. Instead of just saying a not, we can say is undefined. Defined. Like that. Oops. If children is undefined, sorry about that. All right, so Lodash has a method called isUndefined that looks for undefined. This is a little bit cleaner than the other ways that we've used in the past to check for undefined, so I just like to use Lodash's method. It's easy to read and easy to understand. So if children is undefined, we're just going to return nothing. So no component will be rendered, meaning this is going to be empty, and we'll end up with our last condition, which used to be this activity up here. And you'll notice it looks just like this guy, because in our final condition, when we get out to the very edge leaves of this tree, there's only a label. Nothing else gets rendered underneath. Okay, so the other situation I have to take care of is this class. So you'll notice that this guy does not have the C-filter item dropdown. It just has the C item. So we need to handle that situation where inside of our code, inside of our map, right here, we need to determine ahead of time if the child has children. So we're always going to assume that the item gets this class right here, but if the child has children, then we're going to add the drop-down portion of that class. Like this. Okay, so now that will append on the drop-down class if we know we have children ahead of time. And we can actually use the same undefined method if we are concerned. So we can say if it's not undefined, then go ahead and add on the cFilter item drop-down class. And now we can take that item class and put it right here and render that dynamically. Okay, so now we have our main topic, rendering the children. Their children are just rendering recursively, and once we reach our edges, we'll end up with this little bit of code with the appropriate class, and this will be empty. Let's go out and take a look. This is the UI that we're trying to render, so we should be able to refresh this and get back exactly the same UI. Just have to do this sign in with Google thing. And you can see that our tree is still rendering correctly, and we've reduced the amount of code. So now I can go into this component and delete these methods. And we've gone from 4 methods down to 1. Okay, so we're going to continue refactoring this. Looks like there's still some code repetition that we can get rid of. In particular, this section seems to be rendered the same over and over again, and basically this li shows up here and here, and I think that there is an extra bit of HTML code. So I think we can just delete this right here. And by doing that, now this main topic looks just like our render children. So instead of main topic, we can just call render children directly inside of this grade level method. So we'll do that. We'll delete main topic altogether. So now we've gotten rid of 4 functions, which is nice. And we can see, we'll refresh. Pretty sure the hot reload is working, but we'll refresh to make sure. Have to sign in again because we're not holding on to cookies. We can see that we're still rendering the tree. The only difference is things moved over a little bit because we removed some of the HTML. Okay, so now we have our main render method in our component down here, just calling grade level, which is this guy right here, which then calls render children. So then this looks similar, although I think the big difference here is that the parent unordered list item in render children has the cFilter dropdown. If you notice in grade level, it does not have that. Instead, it renders in the cFilter scroll. So those are different, and we could pass in a level and maybe dynamically calculate the class name, but another way that we could refactor this is to go ahead and just leave that in place, and then just call it render, make a new method called render item, and this can just receive an individual child item. And what we'll do is we'll move this code into render item. All right, so now we also need to move the item class determination into that item. So Okay, so now we've simplified that little piece of code, and I think that we can also simplify the grade level piece of code the same way. Because render item is going to handle rendering children, which is the same thing that's happening right here. So now this can simply return this.render item, except it needs to be grade. Let's see, what was that? Looks like grade. Looks like grade is the child. So I'm going to just change this to say child because I think that'll make more sense. Okay, so let's see if we've broken this. There we go. We still render the tree, and we've significantly reduced the amount of code in our page. We have 3 functions now that handle recursively generating each item in the tree, and we can handle the logic for each individual item here so that later on when we need to figure out is this checkbox checked or not, we only ever have to do that in one place. And so we can use the state of this component to keep track of the different items in the tree as people check them. And I think that is about as simple as we can go.